And R is really bummed out, you know? He seems to lose heart. He seems to be full of woe. Our Romeo, I mean RR. Welcome back, readers. I'm Robin. I'm your uncle. Do you like monster movies? How about romance movies? Dark comedies? Then you will be head over heels over this week's pick, Warm Bodies. Warm Bodies is a book written by Isaac Marion. It's a romance between two star-crossed lovers whose love is forbidden by their friends and families. Hang on a sec. Star-crossed lovers, friends and families, in the middle of a city. It's West Side Story! As you may know, West Side Story is based on the same play that Warm Bodies, the book, is based on, Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. If you haven't read Romeo and Juliet, it doesn't matter. Warm Bodies is enjoyable on its own, and the story is only loosely based on the plot. The main difference being that Romeo and Juliet is not a romance, it is a tragedy. This is a romantic comedy. Dark comedy, but still. So do you know what this means? Warm Bodies, the movie, is not just an adaptation of Warm Bodies, the book. The book is an adaptation too. Layers, man. Layers. Warm Bodies stars Nicholas Hoult, Teresa Palmer.
Could you guess the average weight and size of a kangaroo from just the testicles?
I don't know. That must be a pretty big kangaroo.
John Malkovich.
Malkovich.
And Dave Franco. Content warning, this is still a zombie movie, so there is going to be a little bit of gore, not a lot, but more than your traditional rom-com, and there's going to be some mentions of death and self-conclusion. And now, without further ado, here is Warm Bodies 2013. So the movie begins with a pensive zombie called R. His name started with an R, but he cannot remember what his name was. R cannot remember anything about himself. He thinks that he may have been unemployed based on the fact that he's wearing a hoodie. In the book, he wears a black shirt with black slacks and a red tie, so he was probably like a waiter or something, but they changed his outfit for whatever reason. He is shambling around the airport with countless other zombies. This is where they all live. And R is going to be our narrator and main character. And as he's walking around the airport, he imagines who each of the zombies that he passes could have been in their previous life. So nobody knows how people turned into these zombies, only that it happened a couple of years ago. I think it was like 7 or 8 years ago. So we meet the bonies. The bonies are what happens to zombies when they have decomposed enough. They're not quite skeletons. They're just they have like faces that kind of remind me of the Silence, you know, from Doctor Who. R supposes that when you lose all hope, that's what happens to you. And so he's like, well, I have that to look forward to, I guess. So in the book, there's this whole thing about like levels of decay that each of the zombies have gone through, and how R doesn't know when he died, but he looks relatively fresh. He assumes that he died fairly recently, but some people decay a lot faster than others. That's more in the book. So R is wandering around the airport and he gets lost. And he passes 2 children on the conveyor belt. And I think this is a reference to the book. In the book, at this time, he meets and falls in love with another zombie. This would have been the Rosalind character. And then she takes him to this like makeshift chapel that the bonies are in charge of. The bonies are kind of in charge, and they have this kind of ceremony type deal, and then they get married. So they get assigned these 2 children, a girl and a boy. So essentially those are their kids now. And so I'm guessing that they have these 2 here to kind of make a nod to the book for those of us who have read it. So R lives in an airplane, and he has a bunch of stuff from the living world, like snow globes and posters and records. So he plays some music. In the book, they have a lot of Sinatra, but I'm guessing they couldn't afford it. So R goes to meet his best friend, who I don't think they ever even name in the movie, but his name is M. He's meant to be the Mercutio character. If you haven't figured it out, R is supposed to be Romeo. R, Romeo, you get it. He meets with his friend, and they have this kind of grunting conversation, and they decide they're going to go hunt. M motions to no one, like he's getting a bartender to like give him his check. It's like clearly a reflex. So they get a hunting party together and they go out to reach the city to find some food. At the same time, in the city, we meet Julie, Perry, and Nora, and they are scavengers. They're part of the scavenge team to go out and get materials, medicine for the city. So these are Paris, Juliet, and Juliet's nurse. There's a video that plays before they leave, and it's John Malkovich. So we find out that this Colonel Grigio is Julie's father. So he is Capulet. Thanks them for their service and talks to them about how important it is that they do these salvages and, you know, rambles off this kind of anti-zombie propaganda. Before they leave, he says, "God bless America." I know that in the book they specifically said that there are no countries anymore, but like, I do believe that they totally would have done this anyway, just to like make sure we know exactly who this guy is. I'm not saying there's anything wrong per se with saying God bless America. I just feel like the kind of people who tend to say it tend to be of a certain disposition, if you know what I'm talking about. So they head out to scavenge. The humans are gathering supplies, and Nora says she hears something. Julie immediately gets nervous and says that they should bail, but Perry is not down with that idea. He's like, no, we have our orders. We have to stay. And then in burst the zombies. Perry hits R with the butt of his gun, so he goes down like a lamp. Then the other zombies start to attack the humans. Most of them go down pretty quickly. R looks up and sees Julie for the first time. And a music sting plays while he's watching her, and something is going on inside him. Something's happening. So in Romeo and Juliet, they meet at a feast, which I guess this is. So R gets up and starts to head towards Julie, and Perry shoots him. So R attacks him and eats him. He mentions how if he doesn't go for the brain, then Perry would get up and start walking around with them, right? But the brain is the best part because it has the memories. He also mentions that he does not like hurting people, but this is the way of the world now, and it's like the only way that he can survive, essentially. So as he consumes Perry, we now start to see his memories. It's memories of him as a child, memories of him meeting Julie, falling in love. I wonder what his intentions were with Julie before this happened. I wonder if he would have just eaten her or whether the same thing would have happened. I'm curious. So R takes some of the brains and saves them for later. Then he sees Julie and starts heading towards her again. Julie throws a knife at him that sticks in his chest. In the book, it hits him in the forehead, but I guess that would have been harder to do via makeup, and he just takes it out. And then he heads over to her and he says her name, and she's like a little bit confused. So he takes some of the ooze that's come out of the wound that she created, and he smudges it all over her face and sniffs her, and then he's satisfied that she doesn't smell alive anymore. And so he brings her with him to go back to the airport, and Nora watches them go. Nora, I think, is the only survivor of this onslaught. So they all head back to the airport, and R notes that none of the other zombies would have brought a living human back with them, and he laments that he's so weird.
Okay, you're weird.
So he brings Julie to his house, to the airplane, and he tries to reassure her by saying, "Keep you safe," but it does not work. So he locks her in the aircraft and goes off to give her some space. While he's off, he goes to the parking garage where he sits in a BMW convertible. I believe in the book it was a Mercedes, and he decides he wants to get to know her better, and the best way to do that is by eating her boyfriend's brains again. So he has a taste. So he sees Perry with Julie and Grigio, and they're celebrating Julie's mom's birthday. She is deceased. And they start talking about what Perry plans on doing for work. And he says that he wants to work in agriculture. And Grigio's like, why don't you do construction like your dad? And Julie is like not having it, so they leave. They go to this huge breach in security. There's like a hole in the wall. They go through the big breach and they go down through the subway into the stadium, the baseball stadium. And Perry talks about how he's worried about his dad because he hasn't heard from him in like several days. And she tells him not to worry. But when they exit and start to head out past the wall, they go towards where the men are doing the construction. And it turns out that they have all been turned. His dad is up front, so Julie kills the dad. And then the rest of the construction crew start to chase them. Now, there's a thing about running in the book that I will get to. Suffice it to say that in the book, the zombies cannot run. They move slowly, which makes sense because they're dead. That is not the case here. I assume it's because they want it to be a little scarier, you know? Like they want this to be more of a horror than just like a regular comedy, dark comedy romance. So after seeing this memory, R figures out that it makes sense that Julie is afraid of him, so he decides to take a different approach with her. He goes back into the aircraft and he gives her a blanket, and then he plays some music for her, and then we see inside his chest his heart has beat one time. So the next morning, Julie wakes up and she tells R that she is hungry. Man, it's a good thing she didn't have to go to the bathroom this whole time. As he goes out to get her food, she tries to escape, but there are zombies everywhere and her stench is on the breeze.
That stench. That heavenly stench.
So the zombies start to circle around her and close in, and R, probably having noticed this or having smelled her smell like the rest of them have, comes back and tells her not to run. He covers her in goo again. I'm in the goo! And tells her to act like a zombie. To her credit, she does a not bad job, even if it's a little hammy. In the book, she was very hammy about it as well. And she apologizes, but she's like, I need to leave. And he goes, I told you, it's not safe. And she's like, all right, well, I am still hungry. So he brings her to the food court to try to find something, and she does. So they bring this can of fruit cocktail back to the airplane, and she eats it. R goes to one of the fridges in the airplane and brings her a beer. Flat, warm beer. Delicious. Because you know, the flavor of beer is the best part of it, right? Anyway, she enjoys it, and she says she hasn't had one in a long time. I guess there's like no alcohol in this world. Alcohol is illegal in the book because, you know, you have to stay on guard at all times, blah, blah, blah. Just like another way that being alive is kind of not fun in this world. She says, thanks, Mr. Zombie. And he's like, I have a name. Assume that if ever I talk for R, he's more or less like speaking very slowly and in broken sentences. But more or less, he's like, I have a name. And she goes, what's your name? And he goes, He can't remember his name. So she tries to figure it out. She names a bunch of different R names, and he says that none of them really sound familiar. So she goes, how about I just call you R? Perfect. Essentially, I think that this is meant to denote that she is the one who gives him the name R, even though in the book he calls himself R, but maybe I'm misremembering. Anyway, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet.
Not if you called him Stench Blossom.
So she asks him whether she can leave now, and he, in his sort of inner monologue, is like, she can't leave. She just got here. Tell her that it's not safe, that she has to wait a couple days. And he more or less is able to convey that to her, but my understanding is that in the book this actually was true, but here it seems like he's trying to say it to manipulate her, but maybe that's just my interpretation. So he tells her that they'll forget after a few days, so she's kind of like, okay, well, what are we supposed to do around here for that long? And he brings her to go for a drive. She's driving, but she decides to teach him how to drive. In the book, the kids are there with them, so we kind of see the kids watching them in here. During the driving lesson, they keep trying to bite her neck because they can smell her because she's a lot closer. So he keeps trying to like stop them from trying to bite her. So R is not very good at driving, you know, because of his whole like reaction time thing. And he crashes the car as he's trying to park it, again, because of his bad reaction time. But it's still usable. It's just a little fender bendy. Just a little fender bender. So back in the airplane, they have like a montage, you know. They listen to his music. They try on his sunglasses, you know, because he collects a lot of stuff. They play slap hand games that he is bad at. They dance. At some point, Julie asks R if Perry's going to come back, and R says no. At this point in the book, Julie more or less says that Perry was waiting to die, that he had kind of just had enough and he was ready to let go. Here she kind of says that Perry he had changed. She had mourned him before he died. She had prepared herself for his death for a long time. In the book, she asks R if he saw who killed Perry, and he says no. And she's like, well, whoever killed him, I'm not mad at them because it's like not their fault. That does not happen here. So as Julie goes to sleep, R gives her some space and talks about how he's kind of jealous of the living because the dead don't dream, and the closest that they can get is eating brains. So what does he do? He eats some more of Perry's brains. So he sees Perry joining the military after his dad dies, and almost immediately after, you see them going to get the meds that we saw a couple of scenes ago. And he watches as R attacks Perry, and he immediately spits the brain out and looks vaguely horrified. In the book, R is flooded with Perry's memories over a long period of time, whether he's eating his brains or not, and he has like kind of a relationship with Perry. It's like the closest Perry has to being alive again, and it's the closest R has to being alive again. It's like they sort of form this kinship almost, and R calls those daydreams. So R turns around after having eaten more of her boyfriend's brains and realizes that Julie is gone. He runs out to the airport where Julie is trying to fend off a group of zombies with a weed whacker, and R is able to push all the zombies off of her. M is also there. He looks at Julie and says, eat, and R is like, no. And M is like super confused. Suddenly, the bonies find them, and the bonies are moving fast. So R is like, we're going. So they start getting chased by the bonies through the airport and are heading towards the parking garage, and M uses one of those tractor things that they pull the baggage with. What are they called? Okay, I looked it up and they're called baggage tractors. So M tells them to get in, and Julie is a little bit hesitant, but she agrees finally, and M brings them to the garage. When they get there, there's like a huge group of zombies that are looking at them, but R holds Julie's hand and something seems to happen to them and they let them pass. So they start to drive towards the city, but it's raining, and at this point I realize that his mouth isn't black anymore and we can see his pearly whites. I'm wondering if this is him changing or if it's just he hasn't eaten anything in a while, so we don't see the grossness of his mouth and like the water has washed it away or something. I don't know. Julie is freezing, so they stop at a suburb. So Julie can't get through the front door of this house because it's locked. But luckily, R is a zombie, and they're pretty good at getting through locked doors.
I got zombies putting arms through doors all over Manhattan.
So back at the airport, M sees a picture of a couple holding hands, and he gets a couple of flashes that look like memories. More zombies join and start looking at these photos, and M turns to another zombie and says, "Do you feel it?" And the zombie is like, "Yeah." And then you see each of them, like with R before, has one singular heartbeat. But the bonies are watching. They come on over and they give M a good sniff, and they seem pretty angry. Wait a second, bonies? Like Detective Boney? Like in Gone Girl? Are all these videos connected?
Everything is connected.
Back in the house, Julie says she wants to go to sleep, but that she's creeped out by these houses and asks R to sleep on the floor in the room with her. I believe in the book he sleeps in the bed with her. When they get up there, Julie's dad is patrolling the streets, and rather than going out and saying, "Hey, I'm here," she hides from them. She says it's because they would kill R, but she could just leave R there. Be like, "Hey, see ya, dude." In the book, that doesn't happen. In the book, she calls him on the phone instead and is like, "Hey, Dad, I'm fine. I'm gonna come to the city soon." So they go to bed, and Julie decides to lay her clothes out to dry, and R is kind of thrilled. but she tells him not to look, and he fully still does. But eventually he looks away. Pervert. I like that her underwear does not match her bra. Anyone who's spent any extended time with a woman knows that a lot of the time her bra and underwear do not match. And even though this is a movie, it's the apocalypse. Ain't no way she has matching lingerie. Julie asks R if he has to eat people, and he says yes. And she's like, you're a good person. You're like better than any of the humans that I know. You try so hard. You didn't eat me. You saved me. And then he confesses that he ate Perry. And she says it's okay, and she says that she more or less knew that, but she still seems pretty upset. So R reminds us that the dead don't sleep, but suddenly it seems like he's having a dream. He's in some kind of orchard, and he sees Nora, Perry, and Julie, and they're all talking about what jobs that they would like to have if they were in a different kind of world, you know? And Nora says that she wants to be a nurse. Duh. In the book, Perry wanted to be a writer. Perry looks up and sees R, and he's like, oh my god, are you dreaming right now? You can't dream, corpse. In the book, the term corpse is like a pejorative to the zombies. They don't like the term because they are still, you know, ambulatory. So every time Perry and R have these conversations, Perry calls him corpse, but they start to, as I mentioned, like build kind of a kinship together. So R wakes up from his dream, and Julie's gone. She took the car. And R is really bummed out, you know? He seems to lose heart. He seems to be full of woe. RR. So Julie gets to the border and is stopped by some dude whose name I don't know. Some kind of second in command. They check to see if she's infected with some high-tech gadget. I don't even know why they use it, because they don't use it again in the movie, and it wasn't in the book, so I don't even know why they bothered. So out comes Papa Malkovich, and he seems genuinely relieved to see Julie. In the book, when she calls Papa, he says, I'm gonna come and get you. And she's like, don't worry about it, I can get there. And he's like, no, we're coming to get you. And so she leaves to preempt that so that they won't come and find her with R. That's why she leaves, not because she's upset about Perry. In the book, Papa Grigio does not really care that Julie's fine. He's kind of like, okay, well, get back to work. Whereas here he seems like genuinely happy to see her. He asks her if she's been bitten, and she's like, no. In the book, when you're bitten, you turn almost immediately, which, if my understanding of biology is correct, means that having this many people survive a contagion that has that short an incubation period is pretty much impossible. But here it looks like the incubation period is longer, because otherwise why would he ask if she was bit? He would be able to tell because she would have turned into a zombie immediately. So R is walking home and he realizes that he's cold, and he's like, zombies don't get cold. On the way, he meets up with M. Hey, I just realized M's wearing sand shoes.
They're not sand shoes.
So R asks M what they're doing there, and M is like, the bonies kicked us out. And M asks R where Julie is, and he's like, Julie left.
That's rough, buddy.
And then M asks R if he's okay, and R says no. So he shakes him by the shoulder reassuringly.
There.
So M tells R that the bonies are looking for him and Julie, and that the zombies are changing. They're having memories and dreams. So R decides that he has to go to the city to tell Julie what's happening. So next comes the song that they probably blew their whole music budget on, Rock You Like a Hurricane. For the most part, I find the soundtrack underwhelming, but I do appreciate their choice of this song. Do-no-no. So they head to the city through the stadium. R tells them to wait at the stadium while he goes up through the subway and into the, again, huge breach in security. I'm going to get to the running thing now. In the book, rather than there being a huge breach in security, what they do is these zombies start to chase R towards the gate of the city, and R is moving very quickly like a human moves, but they did away with that for this. So instead, they just have him go through the big hole in the wall. So he goes looking for Julie, and and he gets stopped by a goat that's like interested in him. And I do think this just happened in the take. I don't think this was part of the script, but it was cute that the goat went up to him, so they decided to keep it. So he goes looking for Julie and is miraculously able to find her. In the book, they talk about how he can like kind of smell her. And Julie is inside this like mansion talking to Nora about how she misses him. And she goes outside onto her balcony. You get it? Because Romeo and Juliet. And they have this balcony scene. So in the book, the reason why he goes to see her is because he has another one of Perry's memories, and he writes a book and like stores it somewhere. So R wants Julie to get the opportunity to read it. And that's incidentally how she finds out that he killed him, because he reveals that he has Perry's memories. She doesn't really mind in the book. You know, by that point she gets it. So they let him in. I should get my eyebrows shaped, but I never do. Costs money. In this economy? Absolutely not. So they bring him in, and Nora fires off a bunch of questions that make him uncomfortable. And she notes that he doesn't smell rotten, right? Like, his body appears to be changing as well. And he tells Julie about the other zombies and how everyone's changing and how he wants to show everybody, which more or less means he has to show her father. And she's like, there's no way. And then he's like, the bonies are coming after us. So they need to bring him to Grigio. But in order to do that, they have to get him through the city. And so they decide to give him, you know where this is going, a makeover!
Makeover, 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 makeover.
They play Pretty Woman for like 8 seconds. Again, I think that that's all that they could afford, but it's very funny. He takes a shower and they put makeup on him. And they did a good job of making him look dead, but with makeup on. So they bring R to meet John Malkovich, but they're stopped outside by this second in command guy. And Nora and Julie push past him, but R wants to say something human-like to, you know, sell the story that he's human. So he turns to him and says, "How are you?" Nailed it. So they go inside the bunker. No, not bunker. What is this? A hangar? They go inside the hangar, and everyone is like running around and mobilizing. So Julie goes up to Grigio while R and Nora hide, and she asks what's going on. And he says that the dead and the bonies are sort of circling around the city, and there are way too many of them. She tells him that she thinks that the zombies are curing themselves, and he does not believe her, obviously. And we find out here that Nora's mom was killed by a zombie. In the book, she is a free spirit, and she is basically crushed by this new world. Like, there's no joy, there's no art, there's nothing really to live for, so she just kind of leaves the city and gets eaten. So she's like, things can get better, and he's like, things don't get better, they only get worse. I understand this thought, but holding on to a little bit of hope is always important. R comes up and tries to talk to Grigio, but he doesn't really get a chance. He's intimidated, or, you know, it's hard for him to speak. And Grigio realizes immediately that he's a zombie. So he aims his gun at him and is like, "I'm gonna kill you now." But Nora aims her gun at Grigio and is like, "Sorry, bro." So they exit through the gift shop. They go through the subway station, and they go into the stadium, and there are like dozens of zombies there ready to fight the bonies. And the bonies start to climb up the glass roof, and they crash to the ground. So R and Julie start to run again while the zombies start fighting the bonies. Human soldiers enter the stadium, but the bonies are attacking them and they're getting their ass kicked. One soldier gets saved by a hero zombie played by Patrick Curtin, who I used to play rugby with. He is a cool guy. He's a stunt actor. He's been in tons of movies. Love him. So glad to see him in this. So the bonies catch up with R and Julie, and there's a tussle. The rest of the humans arrive in the stadium, and they are seeing the zombies and the bonies are fighting each other, and they're like, who do we shoot? I am no expert on the American military. However, my thinking is they would have just shown up and shot everybody, but it's a movie. So on the radio, there are multiple accounts coming in saying that the zombies and the bonies are fighting each other. And John Malkovich hears this and he's like, what? So the bonies have R and Julie cornered, but they get over to an emergency exit and they open the door. Unfortunately, it looks like whatever the emergency exit used to open into does not exist anymore, and there is just like a 50-foot drop, but R holds Julie and they jump out. In the book, the emergency exit goes into like a ravine and R ends up breaking a bunch of bones, but here they fall into the fountain and he hits his head on the bottom. Julie pulls him up super awkwardly and they kiss a lot, and his eyes change color. So he's cured. Just in time to get shot. John Malkovich is holding up his gun and he's ready to shoot again. He tells Julie to move out of the way, but when she turns back to R, it turns out that R is bleeding. Now, they mentioned earlier on that zombies don't bleed. The dead don't bleed. And so he's bleeding. There's a lot of blood in the fountain and they're all super happy, but he's been shot. Like this... It's like a bittersweet sort of moment. So Colonel Grigio finally lowers his gun and tells his men via the radio that the situation has changed. And so Julie comes and hugs him. In the book, he's not able to accept this. And even though he's able to see with his own eyes that zombies are being cured, he kind of does the same thing as the mom, and he goes off to be eaten by the bonies because he just doesn't know how to live in a world that can get better. So we see a montage of the humans straight up killing all the bonies.
I'd kick you right in your bony old behind! Bony old behind! Bony old behind!
As essentially they are too far gone. You can't really like cure them with love. People are playing baseball with zombies. Zombie children and human children are playing hide and go seek. In the book, the children were the easiest to deprogram because they had to be taught how to kill and how to essentially be zombies. They unlearn everything really quickly. So beauty and love brings everybody back. We see M opening an umbrella or trying to open an umbrella and someone stops and helps him. In the book, he's like a real ladies' man, even when he's dead. And he ends up with Nora in the book. Julie turns to R and asks him if he remembers his name. And he says no. And she's like, well, you can choose it. What do you want to be? And he says, I want to be R. I like him better dead. Is that weird? I liked him better when he was dead. I liked the way that he looked better. Am I the weirdo? I also like the way the Beast looked before he turned into Adam. So the last thing we see is the walls of the city coming down. And that's the end of the movie. So there are some key differences between Warm Bodies and Romeo and Juliet. For one, Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy. They die at the end. Sorry for spoilers for Shakespeare. It's 400 years old. You can get over it. There's like no real Montagues and Capulets. However, there's a fun part in the book where Julie is called, her name's Julie Grigio, but they call her Cabernet because they think that she's more of a red wine, like Capulet. And R is, dead. So Mortague. You get it? Montague. So there's a lot more parallels in the book between the zombies and the humans. They both teach their young how to kill the other one. They have like schools on how to kill, and they're both merely surviving. The leaders of both are hardened and beyond rehabilitation, because the bonies are in charge versus, Grigio and his people. I'm reminded of the women's suffrage movement and the poem by James Oppenheim. Small art and love and beauty, their drudging spirits knew. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. This is something that I really want everyone to think about, especially in our times today. I joke and I fart around here, but the world is definitely affecting me right now, and sometimes I just don't have the heart and the motivation to come here and try to beautify myself and try to create, but it's more important now because we need something to feed our souls, because being human is more than just survival. Anytime you see something could be the last time, and there's like so much beauty in that. The theme of the book is to appreciate what you have because it could be gone in any second. And the fact that it could be gone in any second makes it that much more important that we place the value on it now. So try to remember that, as I know that it's really hard, but there's beauty in the world, and try to hold that in your heart as well as your frustration with the way that things are going, because I know. I know. I'm trying to be positive, but I do know, I have to acknowledge that things are going pretty bad. But it will get better. I have to believe it will get better. Thank you to everyone who supports my channel. Please remember to like and subscribe. It is free. If you know anyone who you think would like my videos, feel free to send my channel to them. If you want to support me further, come on my Linktree and you can buy me a coffee, or you can take a look at my socials. I'll be back in another week. Let's try to enjoy the beauty of spring, and in the meantime, be queer, read books, Bye. He looks relatively like youth of the nation. I'm gonna spend some time blending these cheeks out because I look like I've been out in the cold. I look like I have a fever or something. Fever in the morning, fever all through the night. Upstairs neighbor is walking around. You might hear some clangy clang, bumpity bumps, and I really wish that I could edit them out, but I can't, and I hate them, and I'm sorry. On the radio, uh-oh, he's alive! But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun.